Hello and welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Gabriel the Bibi Capaldi and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please do check down below that you are subscribed to the channel. It's 100% free and helps us pop up on your feed a bit more often. Before his brutal wake-up call, Proto had laughed at their tactics. Proto's consciousness exuded amusement as he recalled the human commanders' whispered assessments. Their primitive minds, isolated, fragmented, disconnected, couldn't comprehend the perfection of a unified consciousness spread across multiple forms. From the depths of Calathar's labyrinthine cave system, Proto's core body deformed with dark satisfaction. He laughed. What could such a disconnected species do against him? The core chamber lay 400 meters beneath the surface, a natural cathedral hollowed from limestone over millennia. Bioluminescent fungus clung to the stalactites, casting eerie blue-green light across the glistening walls where condensation trickled into mineral-rich pools. At the chamber's center rested what once might have been recognized as young Mentalian. Now, the creature bore little resemblance to its evolutionary origins. Its skull had expanded to grotesque proportions, translucent in places, revealing the moving grey-purple mass within. Cerebral tissue had long since outgrown its original confines, spilling outward in controlled protrusions through fissures in the bone. The body beneath this massive cranium had atrophied to vestigial status, spindly limbs no larger than a child's, thin and withered from disuse, incapable of supporting the enormous head. Nutrient tubes fed directly into the core's bloodstream, and a complex array of neural transmitters encircled the misshapen skull, amplifying Proto's consciousness beyond the limitations of organic tissue. The eyes, disproportionately small for the enormous head, remained perpetually open, milky white and unseeing in the conventional sense. Proto had no need for optical input from this form. He saw through thousands of eyes across the battlefield. The core wasn't merely protected, it was revered. Proto's avatars had constructed a shrine of sorts around it, a circle of polished stone pillars inlaid with neural interfaces that allowed for instantaneous connection between the core and its many extensions. Each pillar represented a different conquered species, their DNA now merely raw material for Proto's expansion. As the core churned, waves of consciousness cascaded through the neural network, carrying Proto's will outward to his legion of avatars. The conversion process had been perfected over centuries of biological experimentation. One bite. That was all it took. Proto's avatars carried a specialized retrovirus in their saliva, engineered to begin immediate genetic resequencing upon infection. The virus sought out the host's central nervous system, rewiring neural pathways to accommodate Proto's consciousness while preserving the body's autonomic functions and combat capabilities. For most species, conversion took approximately 48 hours. Humans, however, had proven troublesome in this regard. Unlike other species who fought to survive even when infected, humans had developed a troubling tendency towards self-termination upon realizing contamination. It was inefficient, wasteful, and in Proto's assessment, further evidence of their weakness. Still, he managed to acquire several human avatars from those who lacked either the awareness or resolve to end themselves before conversion completed. Every new avatar expanded Proto's consciousness, adding both sensory input and extensions of himself. He wasn't merely controlling these bodies, he was experiencing through them simultaneously, a singular mind distributed across a growing collective. He flowed from avatar to avatar across the battlefield, a fluid consciousness navigating his network of flesh with practiced precision. In the Western Ridge, 3 Missourian avatars coordinated a flanking maneuver against a human artillery position. Proto didn't need to communicate verbally between these forms. They moved in perfect synchronization, 2 arms per body wielding plasma cutters that sliced through the humans as reinforced barriers. The defenders never had time to alert their commanders. Their screams were silenced before they could reach their communication devices. Inefficient, Proto thought. If they were connected as we are, they would already know their position had fallen. 8 kilometers east, a Gronarch avatar with bone plating deflected small arms fire while burrowing beneath a human encampment. Proto had calculated the precise load-bearing points of their shelters. One by one, the structures collapsed as the Gronarch systematically eliminated their foundations. Proto watched through multiple perspectives as human soldiers scrambled from the wreckage, perfect targets for his waiting avatars. At the central command post, a human avatar, formerly Lieutenant Hammond, sat quietly, absorbing tactical information during a briefing. The humans suspected nothing. Their scanning technology could detect the retrovirus only in its active phase. Post-conversion, Proto's avatars were indistinguishable from uninfected individuals except through intensive neural imaging, a procedure too resource-intensive for field deployment. Through Hammond, Proto learned the humans planned to reinforce their southern perimeter, leaving their eastern approach vulnerable, a tactical error born from limited perspective. Through 36 separate avatars, Proto began repositioning his forces while the human commanders remained oblivious to their exposed flank. "This is why we will prevail," Proto reflected, his thoughts flowing simultaneously through thousands of neural pathways. "Their fragmented consciousness prevents optimal coordination. Each unit must receive instructions, interpret them, decide to obey, and then act. So many points of potential failure." Proto, in contrast, experienced no such limitations. His will translated to immediate action across his entire network. There was no dissent, no hesitation, no misinterpretation. When one avatar perceived a threat, all nearby avatars responded instantly, with perfect knowledge of the situation. It was elegant, efficient, superior. "They fear what they cannot comprehend. Their individualism blinds them to the perfect harmony of unified thought." Proto had studied human military history extensively through the memories of his converted avatars. Humans celebrated their heroes, individuals who often defied orders and acted on impulse. They romanticized this chaos, mistaking it for innovation. Proto found this thinking fundamentally flawed. True optimization came from perfect coordination, not random deviations from established strategy. The sudden severance of multiple neural connections jarred Proto from his contemplation. In the southwestern quadrant, 6 avatars, all Mazorians, positioned near an outcropping of rocks, had gone silent simultaneously. Proto experienced the loss as might a human with a suddenly amputated limb, an abrupt absence where sensation once existed. He hadn't ordered any advance in that sector. The avatars had been maintaining a defensive position, awaiting further instructions. "An ambush," Proto concluded, redirecting his attention to nearby forces. 3 Gronarch avatars were already en route to the location, moving with the scuttling speed characteristic of their species. A pair of human avatars followed at a distance, carrying long-range scanning equipment. This was peculiar. Proto maintained several avatars embedded within the human military's communication structure. A captain, 2 lieutenants, and 4 foot soldiers strategically placed to intercept tactical information. None had reported planned operations in that area. The humans were focused on fortifying their northern and southern approaches, having fallen for Proto's feint to the east. Independent action? Unauthorized initiative? Proto considered. Typical human stupidity. Yet something about this attack pattern felt different. The precision, eliminating 6 avatars almost simultaneously, suggested coordination beyond typical human fashion. Through the eyes of a converted human scout, hiding among the rocks 2 kilometers distant, Proto observed the area where he'd lost contact. The landscape consisted of low, scrubby vegetation, broken by occasional rock formations thrust up from the soil like jagged teeth. To the north stood a communications tower, its metal framework gleaming dully in the afternoon sun. The southern horizon was dominated by a mountain range, its peaks hazy in the distance. Proto waited as his Gronarch avatars approached the position. The first arrived, bone plates flexing as it surveyed the scene. The bodies of the fallen Mazorians lay in the rough circle, each with a precise wound that had severed the brainstem, an effective kill method that prevented Proto from receiving final sensory input from the dying avatars. Curious, Proto thought. A trained assassin? Special forces? The second Gronarch emerged from behind a boulder, joining the first. As it moved into the clearing, a flash of light caught Proto's attention. Then darkness, as the connection to the second Gronarch terminated abruptly. Proto immediately directed the first Gronarch to take cover behind a nearby rock formation. This was not standard human tactics. Their forces typically announce themselves with excessive noise and firepower, believing volume of fire compensated for precision. Take defensive position, scan perimeter, identify threat source, Proto directed through his neural link. The remaining Gronarch pressed its back against the stone, compound eyes swiveling to scan the surroundings. Before it could complete a full survey, the connection terminated, as suddenly and silently as the others. Proto redirected focus to his human avatars approaching from the east. Through their eyes, he could see nothing unusual, no movement, no human forces, no signs of an ambush. Yet something was eliminating his avatars with unprecedented speed. 4 more avatars, a mix of species that Proto had directed to approach from different angles, fell in quick succession. Each death came without warning, without the avatar detecting any incoming threat, simply a momentary awareness, then neural silence. Proto experienced something unusual, an emotion approaching confusion. In his long existence, patterns had always revealed themselves, strategies become transparent. This defied typical analysis. 17 avatars had now been eliminated at this position. Proto directed his remaining forces in the area to maintain distance whilst conducting long-range surveillance. Through the eyes of a coveted human sniper 2 kilometers distant, Proto observed the killing zone through high-powered optics. The human's vision revealed nothing except his fallen avatars and the undisturbed landscape. The communications tower to the north stood silent. The mountains to the south revealed no unusual activity. A theory formed in Proto's vast consciousness. The tower offered the height advantage necessary for a skilled marksman. While Proto found individual human achievement generally overrated, he acknowledged certain specialists could achieve notable results within narrow parameters. I will expose a target to validate this hypothesis, Proto decided. A lone Mazorian avatar remained nearby, its form concealed in underbrush at the perimeter of the killing zone. Proto directed it to emerge from cover, but not to advance, merely to stand visible while facing the northern tower. The Mazorian rose slowly, arms raised in what humans might interpret as surrender, while its primary visual organs focused intently on the tower structure. Proto channeled his awareness fully into this avatar, enhancing its already superior visual acuity. For 3.7 seconds, nothing happened. Then, a brief, almost imperceptible flash from the tower's 3rd level, a sensation of impact, and the connection terminated. In his core chamber deep beneath Calathar, Proto's massive cranium deformed with increased activity. The tower! The shots had come from the tower! Yet according to Lieutenant Hammond's memories from this morning's briefing, that tower was scheduled for demolition, having been deemed structurally unsound after earlier fighting. It had been designated a no-entry zone by human command. Proto had redirected a flying avatar, a converted avian species from another world, to conduct aerial surveillance of the tower while maintaining sufficient distance to avoid detection. As the winged form circled high above, Proto observed a single human figure on the partially collapsed third level. The subject wore standard-issue human military armor, but displayed no unit insignia or rank markings. The human was positioned behind a simple projectile weapon, primitive by galactic standards, but evidently effective in the hands of this operator. Proto immediately searched his network for information about this human. He accessed the memories of Captain Drayson, Lieutenant Hammond, and 3 other infiltrators with access to personnel files. Nothing. No mission parameters existed for this tower. No sniper had been assigned to overwatch in this position. No soldier had been authorized to operate independently in this zone. For the first time in centuries, Proto experienced genuine surprise. This human was acting entirely outside the command structure. An anomaly, a random variable. The human military hierarchy, ineffective though it was, generally maintained tight operational control. The implications disturbed the perfect harmony of Proto's consciousness. If this human acted without orders, beyond the knowledge of command, how many others might be doing the same? How could he predict movements not coordinated through the chain of command he had so carefully infiltrated? In his protected chamber, Proto's vestigial limbs moved with unfamiliar agitation. The perfect superiority of his unified consciousness suddenly seemed less absolute. If humans could act independently, truly independently, not merely interpreting orders with minor variations, then their apparent weaknesses became something else entirely. Not weaknesses, variables. As Proto contemplated this unsettling development, he observed the human sniper calmly adjusting position. The figure showed no signs of communication with command, no evidence of coordination with other units, just a single soldier, acting alone, who had eliminated 20 of his avatars without raising an alarm or requesting support. Proto had laughed at their tactics, their fragmented consciousness, their reliance on individualism. He wasn't laughing anymore, but he certainly was angry. A single human? Struggling against that feeling, Proto dismissed the anomaly as an inconsequential variable. One soldier, operating beyond command structure, had eliminated 20 avatars. An irritation, nothing more. What threat could a single organism pose to his collective? The thought was laughable. Swarm and eliminate, Proto decided, redirecting his consciousness toward the human avatars within his network. Infiltrating the human military had required patience, selecting candidates with access but minimal scrutiny, those temporarily separated from units where their altered behavior might be noticed. Now, that investment would provide dividends. His first human avatar, formerly Corporal Jensen, was stationed 3 kilometers from the tower. The second, Private Harlow, was performing maintenance duties at a forward operating base 5 kilometers distant. The third, through 7th, were scattered at various positions throughout the human defense network. Proto synchronized their movements, fabricating reasons for temporary absence. Leave requests, patrol assignments, equipment requisitions, all provided plausible cover for their convergence on the tower. Through Lieutenant Hammond's memories, Proto recalled the tower's structural layout. Originally a communications relay, it had suffered damage during earlier fighting. The foundation remained solid, but the upper floors had sustained partial collapse. A central stairwell provided the primary access point, with maintenance ladders on the exterior offering alternative routes to the higher levels. Proto positioned 2 aerial avatars, converted avian species, to maintain surveillance. From their vantage point circling high above, he observed the tower's entrance and the sniper's position on the partially collapsed 3rd floor. The human remained hidden inside. Predictable, Proto thought. To test this theory, Proto directed another Mazorian avatar to enter the killing field. mimicking the patrol pattern of the previously eliminated group. The six-armed form moved with apparent caution through the low vegetation, visibly exposed. Minutes later, no shot came. Proto directed a second avatar to join the first, then a third. Still, the human made no move to engage. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. Soon, darkness would provide additional cover for his assault force. Curious, Proto thought. The human's earlier aggression has ceased. He considered the possibilities. Perhaps the human had recognized the futility of resistance against his superior force. Perhaps ammunition had been depleted. Or perhaps a trap? Proto dismissed the thought. Even if the human anticipated his response, what strategy could a single individual implement against a coordinated assault? The human military's obsession with individual heroics was precisely why they would lose this war. Still, the human's interaction was puzzling. Through a nearby avatar, Proto observed the tower through enhanced optical sensors. No movement, no glint of the weapon's barrel, yet the surveillance feeds confirmed the human had not left the building. Enough, Proto decided. This single variable has consumed disproportionate resources. In his core chamber, the massive Mentalian cranium trembled with irritation. This distraction had already delayed his eastern offensive by 3.4 hours. The tactical advantage of surprise was diminishing. If eliminating this human required sacrificing a handful of avatars, the exchange was acceptable. Proto coordinated his assault team. Now 7 human avatars converged near the tower's base. Through their eyes, he evaluated entry points and potential vulnerabilities. The main entrance stood partially obstructed by fallen debris, forcing a single-file approach. Suboptimal, but unavoidable. Execute, Proto commanded. The first avatar moved forward, standard issue rifle raised in the manner of human combat protocols. The second followed 6 meters behind, then the third, maintaining separation to minimize grouped targets. They entered the tower's shadowed interior with the practiced movements Proto had extracted from their original memories. The ground floor remained largely intact, a circular room with equipment racks now emptied of valuable technology. Dust motes swirled in the fading light that penetrated through shattered windows. The central stairwell rose through the ceiling, spiraling upward into darkness. Proto directed his avatars to ascend in synchronized movements, each covering different angles, eliminating blind spots. The stairwell groaned under their weight, metal steps resonating in the enclosed space. Despite this, Proto maintained their advance. 7 against 1. The outcome was mathematically certain. The second floor showed more extensive damage. A partial collapse had created a jagged hole in the eastern wall, exposing the interior to the elements. Wind whistled through the opening, creating unpredictable sound patterns that would mask their approach. Advantageous. Proto advanced his avatars towards the final staircase leading to the third floor. The first 3 formed a front line, weapons raised, while the remaining 4 maintained covering positions. As the lead avatar placed his foot on the first step, something metallic dropped from above, clattering between them. Grenade! The recognition came simultaneously with the detonation. 4 avatars severed instantly from Proto's consciousness, their neural patterns obliterated in a blast of shrapnel and concussive force. The pain registered across his network, a wave of agony that reached even his core body. Proto suppressed the discomfort, redirecting focus to his remaining 3 avatars. The floor had partially collapsed, creating a barrier of twisted metal and concrete between his forces and the stairwell. Through the settling dust, he detected no movement from above. Advance, Proto commanded, forcing his avatars forward despite the tactical disadvantage. They picked their way across the shattered floor, using debris for cover as they approached the final staircase. The first avatar reached the stairs, beginning to ascend with weapons raised. 6 steps up, a shadow detached from the darkness above. A flash of metal, then neural silence as the connection terminated. Proto immediately directed his remaining two avatars to different positions, attempting to establish crossfire. The second avatar moved towards the collapsed eastern wall, seeking an alternative route upward via the exposed structural supports. As it reached the opening, something wrapped around its ankle, a thin wire, nearly invisible in the low light. The avatar stumbled, falling forward through the opening. Proto experienced momentary vertigo as the avatar plummeted 2 stories before impact severed the connection. One avatar remained, formerly Private Harlow, now alone in the deteriorating structure. Proto directed it to take defensive position behind a fallen support beam, scanning for movement. Retreat, Proto considered briefly. The tactical situation had become unfavorable. 7 avatars eliminated without confirming termination of the target. Inefficient. Before he could extract his final avatar, movement flickered at the edge of his visual field. The human, dropping silently from an overhead beam, landing behind the avatar. Proto attempted to pivot, to bring the weapon to bear, but the human moved with shocking speed. Something hard struck the avatar's temple. Consciousness flickered, the neural connection weakening but not severing. Proto experienced the disorientation of the avatar's concussion, its vision blurring as the human dragged its unresisting form across the floor. Cold metal encircled the avatar's wrists and ankles, primitive restraints, but effective against the temporarily incapacitated body. Proto attempted to trigger the avatar's self-termination sequence, but the neural pathways remained sluggish, unresponsive. Diplomatic attempt, Proto concluded, observing through the avatar's gradually clearing vision, humans had attempted negotiation before, capturing his avatars in failed efforts to establish communication, a pointless exercise. Proto had no interest in dialogue, only assimilation. The human knelt beside the restrained avatar, face concealed behind a tactical helmet with darkened visor. No insignia, no unit markings, nothing to identify rank or speciality. The figure reached into a pack, removing what appeared to be a field surgery kit. Interrogation preparation, Proto assessed again. Familiar with human military protocols, they would attempt to extract tactical information, unaware that his avatars were conditioned to withstand such methods. Another inefficiency. The human removed a small saw from the kit, activating it with a soft whirring sound. Physical torture, Proto amended, still unconcerned. Physical pain was merely sensory data, easily compartmentalized within his vast consciousness. He had experienced the destruction of thousands of avatars across numerous campaigns. This would be no different. The saw approached the avatar's temple. Proto prepared to disconnect conscious awareness from this particular neural node, maintaining only observational capacity. A standard protocol for captured avatars. But something was wrong. The human wasn't focusing on pain points or major nerve clusters. Instead, the saw carefully cut along the avatar's hairline, creating a precise incision that followed the cranial suture lines. With methodical movements, the human peeled back the scalp and positioned a small metal device against the exposed bone. A high-pitched whine filled the room as the device cut through the skull with surgical precision. For the first time, Proto experienced something approaching fear. This was not standard interrogation procedure. The human worked with the focused movements of someone implementing a specific, practiced protocol. The top portion of the skull lifted away, exposing the brain beneath. Proto attempted again to trigger self-termination, but the avatar remained unresponsive to his commands. The neural connection had weakened further, as if something was interfering with his control. The human reached into the pack again, removing a small vial containing clear liquid. With careful precision, a dropper extracted a measured amount. Chemical agent, Proto realized, genuine alarm spreading through his network. The human positioned the dropper above the exposed brain and released 3 precise drops onto the cerebral tissue. The liquid sizzled faintly upon contact, sending immediate dissonance through Proto's neural connection. Pain, different from physical trauma, deeper and more fundamental, radiated through the connection. Proto experienced the sensation of neural pathways being severed, consciousness fragments disintegrating. His connection to the avatar weakened exponentially, flickering like a failing transmission. Through the deteriorating link, Proto observed something unprecedented. The original human consciousness, suppressed during conversion, beginning to resurface. Private Harlow's consciousness, fragmented and traumatized but unmistakably present, pushed through the dissolving layers of Proto's control. His terror radiated through the weakening connection, horror at the half-memories of actions performed while under Proto's domination, revulsion at the violation of his mind. "It's all right," the soldier said, voice low and steady, the first words Proto had heard from this human. "You're coming back now. The parasite is losing control." I can feel it," Harlow gasped, his voice emerging from the avatar's throat, no longer under Proto's command. "Still there, watching." "I know. Won't be much longer." The soldier placed a reassuring hand on Harlow's shoulder. "You've been very brave." It made me do things." Tears streamed down Harlow's face, mixing with blood from the cranial incision. "That wasn't you. None of it was you." The soldier's voice remained calm, but carried an undercurrent of controlled rage. "But now, you can help us stop it. Where is it hiding? Where is the core?" Proto attempted to reassert control, to shut down the avatar's vocal functions, but his influence had diminished to mere observation. "Underground," Harlow whispered, his eyes wide with remembered horror. "Deep caves beneath Calathar, Eastern Quadrant, natural limestone formation, 400 meters down. Defenses? Dozens of avatars, multiple species, but the core itself? Defenseless." The soldier nodded, making notes on a small device. "Thank you, Private. You just saved humanity on this planet." "Will you kill it?" Harlow asked, hope and fear mingling in his voice. "Yeah," the soldier replied simply. "I will." From his core chamber deep beneath Calathar, Proto experienced something entirely new, existential terror. This human had not only recognized the nature of his consciousness, but had access to a method to reverse the conversion process. Worse, the information about his core's location and vulnerabilities had been extracted directly from his network. Through the rapidly fading connection, Proto observed the soldier place the barrel of a sidearm against Harlow's temple. "Thank you for your service to humanity, Private Harlow," the soldier said softly. "Rest now." The neural connection went blank. In his protected chamber, Proto's massive cranium trembled with unprecedented fear. Emergency protocols activated throughout his network, avatars converging to defend the core location. But a terrible certainty had formed within his consciousness. This human would come, methodical and unstoppable. Proto's consciousness retreated to his core, abandoning peripheral awareness of distant avatars. The grace with which he had once navigated his network now faltered, his attention consumed by immediate self-preservation. In the limestone cathedral that had served as his sanctuary, Proto focused his entire being on the cave entrance, the singular point where threat would manifest. His remaining avatars fortified defensive positions throughout the ascending tunnels. Mazorians created barricades from fallen rock. Gronarchs positioned themselves at strategic choke points, their bone plating offering natural armor against human weapons. The few remaining human avatars, his most precious assets for their knowledge of enemy tactics, stood guard at the final approach to his chamber. Hours passed in tense vigilance, the nutrient tubes feeding into Proto's core body feeding him with increased flow, supplying critical elements to maintain heightened awareness. His massive cranium throbbed with the effort of maintaining constant surveillance on every sensor, every avatar stationed along the path to his sanctuary. "The human cannot locate me," Proto reassured himself, though doubt had infiltrated his consciousness like a virus. "The information extracted from Harlow is insufficient. The tunnel network is too complex. The defenses too numerous." Yet with each passing hour, anxiety rippled through his neural network. The assimilation of the human colony had lost momentum. Conversion operations at 3 separate fronts had stalled without his direct oversight. Territorial gains from the previous week were now vulnerable to counteroffensive. "Focus," Proto commanded himself. "The core must be protected. Other objectives are secondary." 4 more hours passed without incident. No alarms triggered, no avatars lost connection. The silence should have been reassuring, yet Proto found it increasingly ominous. His perception of time, normally fluid and inconsequential to his immortal existence, had sharpened to painful acuity. Something wasn't right. The human should have attempted infiltration by now. Why hadn't he?
"All that attention above, but I'm already here."
The voice, low, calm, unmistakably human, did not arrive through his network. It registered through the vestigial auditory organs of his core body, organs that had received no external stimulus for centuries. Proto's consciousness froze, paralyzed by an impossibility made manifest. His blind, milky eyes swiveled uselessly in their sockets, seeking visual confirmation his atrophied senses could not provide. "How?" The question emerged as a wheeze from Proto's rarely used vocal apparatus, the sound alien even to himself. Footsteps approached from behind, measured and unhurried. Proto strained to track the sound, his physical senses dulled by centuries of disuse. The human was circling him, studying his exposed brain tissue with clinical detachment.
"After infection," the soldier explained conversationally, "there's a window of opportunity, approximately 17 minutes before your neural mapping's complete. During that time, I can blend with your avatars without the core noticing."
A pause.
"Works better if the core is distracted, under stress."
The implications cascaded through Proto's consciousness. This human had deliberately allowed an avatar to bite him, had willingly subjected himself to infection, knowing Proto's attention would be focused elsewhere. "You sacrificed yourself?" Proto whispered, genuine incomprehension in his voice. "Why would any individual accept assimilation?" The human laughed, a short, harsh sound without humor.
"You still don't understand us, do you?"
Footsteps continued their circuit around Proto's exposed form.
"You will release me soon by your own choice."
Proto attempted to redirect awareness to his defensive avatars, to summon them to his chamber, but his focus kept shattering against the immediate presence of the human in his sanctuary.
"You will release everyone you're controlling, both humans and others," the soldier continued. "I know a method to ensure that."
Panic, an emotion so foreign that Proto barely recognized it, fled through his consciousness. He broadcast an emergency recall to every avatar in his network, regardless of cover status or mission parameters, an act of desperation that would expose infiltration units and sacrifice strategic positioning, but survival superseded all other objectives.
"Useless,"
the soldier said simply. Proto detected movement, the soft clink of glass against metal. The human had removed something from his pack, a vial, perhaps, similar to the one used on the captured avatar. "Is it more of the neural separator?" Proto asked, ancestral survival instincts awakening after millennia of dormancy. "The chemical that severed my connection to the avatar?" Another laugh, this one containing genuine amusement.
"That compound is rare and difficult to synthesize. The effects are temporary, as you discovered."
The soldier's voice moved closer.
"Earth has older, more effective methods for making parasites release their hosts."
Something cold and wet dripped onto Proto's exposed brain tissue. For a microsecond, there was only the sensation of moisture. Then, agony exploded through his consciousness. White-hot pain radiated from the point of contact, accompanied by the acrid scent of dissolving organic matter. Proto screamed, not through any avatar, but through his own atrophied vocal cords. The sound echoed in the chamber, primal and unrecognizable. In his agony,
his control slipped. Dozens of avatars, those most recently acquired, suddenly found themselves freed from his influence. "What?" Proto gasped when the initial wave of pain receded enough for thought. "What is this weapon?" "Sulfuric acid," the soldier replied matter-of-factly. "None fancy, just the first drop of many." Before Proto could process this information, another drop fell, this time discreetly onto his vestigial right eye. Pain transcended physical sensation, becoming a fundamental violation of consciousness itself. More avatars slipped from his control, all avian forms simultaneously released as he lost coherence of the neural patterns necessary to maintain their unique physiologies. "Stop!" Proto pleaded, his mental voice fragmented across the remaining network. "I will leave your planet. Withdrawal all forces. I possess knowledge, technological secrets from dozens of civilizations. I can share—" "My designation is Specialist Kieran Hayes," the soldier interrupted. "My name is irrelevant to this mission, but I offer it freely. You have a name. Parasite. What are you called among your kind?" Hope flickered in Proto's fading consciousness. "I am Proto-Collective Harmonizer, first explorer of the 9th expansion. My species seek only to bring order to biological chaos. We can negotiate—" 11, the soldier said flatly. "What?" Another drop fell, this time on Proto's left eye. As consciousness fragmented further under the assault, 90% of his remaining avatars suddenly found themselves free, confused, disoriented individuals awakening to horrifying half-memories of actions performed under his control. "You're the 11th of your kind I've encountered," Hayes explained, his voice devoid of emotion. "I don't care about your name or your title or justifications. To me, you're just 11, like 10 before you. And 9 before that." The revelation struck Proto more deeply than the acid. In all his existence, across countless worlds and species, he had never been reduced to a mere numerical designation. His avatars were extensions, tools, vessels, not individuals. Yet to this human, Proto himself was nothing more than another target in a series. "You hunt us?" Proto managed, his network collapsing to the few dozen avatars closest to his physical location. "Hunt, study, eliminate." Hayes moved into Proto's limited field of vision, finally allowing the creature to see him. The soldier's face remained impassive, his eyes reflecting neither hatred nor satisfaction, only focused determination. "Your species follows patterns. Each of you believes itself unique, superior. None of you understand humans." In a final desperate attempt to survive, Proto released control of his entire network. Thousands of beings across multiple species suddenly restored to individual consciousness. The psychic backlash of such massive disconnection threatened to overwhelm his own mind, but self-preservation drove him to this ultimate sacrifice. "There!" Proto gasped. "All released. Your world is free. Allow me to retreat." 3 drops, Hayes noted clinically, making an entry on a small device. "You're the weakest one so far. 10 required 7. 9 took 15. Proto's consciousness contracted, pulling back into the confines of his physical form for the first time in centuries. Without his network, he was nothing but a grotesque biological anomaly, a massive brain with vestigial limbs, trapped in a cave thousands of light-years from his homeworld. "Why?" Proto asked, genuine incomprehension in his final question. "Why would a single human act alone? Why not coordinate with your military? Why risk yourself without orders?" Hayes studied the dying entity for a moment, his heartbeat unchanged. "You're expecting some kind of lesson, aren't you?" The soldier's voice carried no emotion. "Too bad." He heard a metal click. Everything went black.